Good morning. It's an honor to be here. I normally don't give short talks, but this is going to be a short one. Got 10 minutes, and I decided not to do a God moment. I decided to do God moments. I've got a whole bunch, and I do a lot with PowerPoint, and it kind of keeps me on track so that I don't go on and on, otherwise I'll be here 3 hours. So my ministry is the Starting Point Project, and my quick background is I live in the area in Waukesha, grew up in a Christian home, believe the Bible cover to cover, went to a Christian college in Arkansas to get a degree in engineering, did that, then I came back here, Whitewater, got a degree in physics. My physics professors were telling me I was wrong about everything that I believed, and I knew what I believed, but I didn't know why. I couldn't defend the Christian worldview, so God put it in my heart to start looking into things, so I've been looking into things for 38 years now. So I've been speaking 38 years, and then felt called into full-time ministry about 17 years ago, founded the Starting Point Project. Travel all over the U.S., I've spoken in 9 other countries. We do Grand Canyon tours. Jeannie was on one of those, and just got back a few days ago from one. So really, really quick background. And people sometimes say, oh, you got to write a book. Well, I've got 3 books so far, but when I share some of my stories, they say, oh, you got to write a book. Sometimes that's just a phrase that people say, but after the 7th time, I figured out God is telling me I do need to write another book. I have a list of 6 that I'm going to write, but one of them is probably going to be called Stuff God Does. Because God does a lot of stuff, and pretty much everything in my life He has done, but I have enough stories that I could write an entire book. So I'm just going to give you highlights from 3 incidences. And the first one has to do with a place called Waukesha Engine. It's in Waukesha, and they make engines, so good name. Well, I grew up in Waukesha. I've driven by this place many, many times, and how this fits into one of my stories is when I felt called into full-time ministry, I had been doing computer programming. I had my own business for about 5 years, the first 4.5 of which I didn't make one phone call to get work. That's a whole nother God moment, but the phone just kept ringing. I had plenty of work. It was going extremely well. When I felt called into full-time ministry, I was going to shut down my computer programming business and do full-time speaking. At the time, I was thinking I'm going to have to travel a lot more, mainly drive. I fly most of the time now, but at the time I thought I'll be driving around southeast Wisconsin and maybe Illinois and Minnesota. The vehicle I had was not going to make it. It was older and I needed to replace it, but I didn't have enough funds to buy another vehicle and I didn't want to take out a loan. So I needed a little bit more computer programming work to get some income to purchase a car before I went into full-time ministry. So I am driving by Waukesha Engine. I don't know anyone that works there. I'm driving by in my old vehicle, and I look over at the building, and I say, God, get me a project there. And then I kept driving, and I started laughing, thinking, where did that come from? Like, I'm going to tell God, yeah, just, get me a programming project there. So I thought, well, whatever. About a week later, my business phone had not been ringing. It rang. And it was a local computer consulting firm that I had done some projects for years earlier. And they said, hey, we have a project that came up. We really need your help. It's Waukesha Engine. And I just thought, out of the tens of thousands of businesses around, that was the one. I just started laughing and think, okay, God, you have a sense of humor. So I went and scoped out the project. I said, I'll take it on. And then there's something called scope creep that kept wanting more and more. Well, the project got so big, I told them, I can't do this anymore. I'm trying to move into full-time ministry, and now I have no time to do that. So I just backed out of the project, had another programmer come in instead. But I realized I made enough money in about 2.5 months to sell my vehicle and pay cash for another used car and then move on my way towards ministry. It was just something that came up out of nowhere. And again, God has a sense of humor. He didn't need to do that. But I think it makes God smile to do things like that. So He provided enough funds to pay for a vehicle and not take on any debt whatsoever. That's one quick story. There are other details there. The second one has to do with this transition from doing computer programming into full-time ministry. Again, I had my own business for about 5 years, and it went extremely well. I just worked out of my home, traveled a little bit, only worked 40 hours a week, never worked a weekend, never worked an evening. It was just going very well. God was blessing it. So now I feel called to leave that and go into full-time ministry, and I felt convicted right away. I am not to charge for what we do in speaking. Well, I'm a science guy, spreadsheet guy. I analyze things. I started thinking through it. I was going to get a spreadsheet out, and I felt God saying, Don't go there. It won't end well. And it wouldn't have. You can imagine, you guys are successful business people. What if you were going to leave what you're doing and do something else and not charge? You can't make it work on paper. So how does it work? I don't know. 17 years later, we're doing better than ever. It just been around the world. We made it through COVID. We didn't just survive through COVID. We thrived, and we're doing better than ever. But it wouldn't work on paper, and I honestly am not quite sure how it did work, because we still don't charge anything. I've been speaking 38 years, 17 full-time. I have a wife and a home. At the time, I had a wife, a home, mortgage, utilities, and 2 kids. I still have the home, but the mortgage isn't there anymore. I still have the wife. She decided to keep me. Back January was our 30th wedding anniversary, 30 years in a row. And still have 2 kids, but they found people they liked better, and they both got married, but they're still in the area. In fact, we hired my daughter. That's a whole nother God moment I just thought of. We had no money to hire my daughter, but someone else said they would step in. So my daughter's working with me now. It's just amazing, doing that. And our son bought his first house. He lives about 4 minutes from us. But God is the one. God wanted to do something, and I learned a long time ago it has nothing to do with me. I always felt bad, like, God, why are you blessing me so much? He's like, this really isn't about you. He wants to do something. I get to go along for the ride. And there's 50 million other stories associated with that, but God is the one who wanted the ministry to thrive, and so he provided all along the way. Last story goes back a little bit further, back closer to when the Dead Sea was just starting to get sick. This has to do with when I was in college. So I was at John Brown University in Arkansas first for engineering, and then did the physics at Whitewater. But while I was at John Brown, I finished up and I was leaving, and I was coming back to Wisconsin. I was not going back again. And I was talking to a guy in his dorm room who I played basketball with. And I never forget standing there, and he said, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you pray for my grandpa? His health isn't, good at all. He's probably not going to make it much longer. I'm trying to witness to him. So I said, sure, that's what you do, right? Mentally back in my mind, I'll pray for him and once or twice and then be done. That's what we tend to do. So I remember driving home from from Arkansas to Wisconsin, getting home that evening, and I remembered Brian's grandfather. So I prayed for him. And then the next night, prayed for Brian's grandfather. And then the next night, and then the next night. And I started wondering, this guy's grandfather could be dead. And this was, again, a long time ago. This is before the internet and texting and email. I had no idea how to get a hold of Brian. I didn't have his phone number. I think he lived in Louisiana. That's all I knew. I think that's where he was from. So I'm praying every night. And then a week goes by, and 2 weeks, and then a month, and then 6 months. And then I'm at Whitewater studying there, and I'm in the navigators group, and they're talking about prayer, and they're like, how long do you pray for things? I said, well, as an example, I had a friend, Brian, praying for his grandfather. At that point, it had probably been 1.5 years. I said, I haven't missed a night. And it wasn't to my credit. God just kept putting it on in my mind. It's like, as long as it's on your mind, why wouldn't you pray about it? So, this was like 1.5 years later. Haven't missed a night. I have no idea. I'm thinking this guy's grandfather's probably passed, but you know what? If he had passed, maybe God would just let me forget about it. But it's on my mind, so I'm going to keep praying. So then it was 1.5 years, then 2 years, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4. I have not missed a night. And it's just every night it's on my mind. So now I have a job. I was doing field service engineering, traveling around the country. Did a job in New Jersey, called my boss, say, I'm coming home. He goes, no, don't come home, go to Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm like, I just want to go home. I went to Little Rock, I'm doing the work there, and one evening I went to find a health club to go work out because I didn't miss. Every other day I would just go, so I found some place, half an hour north side of Little Rock. I'm driving back to the hotel, and randomly just decide to, and this is about maybe 4 hours from where I went to school in Arkansas, and I just decided to stop at a Walmart on the way back to the hotel. So I get off and go to this Walmart. I'm just walking around. It was before Christmas. I'm looking, is there anything I could buy for my parents or something? And I see a guy walk by the aisle, and it looked like Brian, who I hadn't seen in 4 years. We hadn't kept in touch. And it's like, it's probably not him. I think he lives in Louisiana. But I followed him to the back of Walmart, and he goes into a bathroom. So I'm hanging out by the curtains and pillows waiting. He finally comes out, and it was Brian. And he sees me. He said, Jay, what are you doing here? And I said, I've been looking all over for you. He goes, really? I said, no. And then I told him I was, graduated, had a job. I'm doing some field service engineering. And so we were talking. And then I said, hey, Brian, I said, you are not going to believe this. I said, you won't even remember this. But the last day that we were on campus at John Brown University, I was in your dorm room. And you said, could you pray for my grandfather? Because he's not doing well. He's not going to last much longer. You're trying to witness to him. I said, I have prayed for him every single night since then. It's on my mind every single night. And he said, you know what? He goes, I can't believe that he just got saved. After 4 years, he just got saved. And how would I possibly know? I wouldn't know, but God had me go from New Jersey, instead of going home, go to Little Rock, and then happen to stop at a Walmart where Brian was and see him and all that. An atheist could say that's a coincidence. I say, okay, if you want to believe that, that's fine. I know better. This was a God moment. God, put this on my mind for 4 years, and he didn't owe that to me. But those are the types of things that God does. And all we have to do is be willing to be diligent in what he's asking us to do. So that was just exciting, and it has told me ever since, you keep praying about something until it's not really on you. It gets answered or it's not on your mind anymore, because God is faithful. And again, he doesn't owe it to us, but he chooses to use us to reach others. And so in closing, I would say, be looking and asking for these God moments. God wants to do so much, and the only reason he doesn't do more is I think we get in the way and we're not always available or willing to be used. But he'll do exciting things. He'll do exciting things in each one of your lives because he's equipped you in a very special way, and he puts you in places that others won't get. So it's not about those who are more popular getting around and reaching everyone. It's God using people like us every day. And close with this as well, the world's crazy. It's always been getting a little bit worse morally, but a few years ago the wheels fell off, and it's just nuts. And it can be depressing because you think, how can I fix this or change it? You can't. Good news is God's not asking you to fix the world, change it. He's asking you to share the gospel with those around you, and that we can do. And the worse the world is, the easier it is to share the only hope that exists, which is Jesus Christ. So thanks for giving me a little God moments here. Be looking for the book to come out in another year or so. So thank you, Paul.